What's up everybody, Spencer Sutton here, and today we want to talk about should you buy this house. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at one today in Birmingham, Alabama. And a lot of people come to Birmingham because they love the low to moderate income areas of Birmingham. There's a lot of cash flow. And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk this house. We're going to look at things that need to be done to it and then ask the question, should you invest in this property? We'll do the numbers and we'll take it from there. And so the first thing we want to do is look at the neighborhood, the class of neighborhood. Then we want to drive the street, and then we want to look at the house. So we're going to do all of those just so you can see how we evaluate houses. So I'm going to tell you right now, this house has two strikes against it. Number one is on the street, there are other vacant lots and vacant properties, but really next door. So that's one, but next door, there's a vacant house. And that to me is troublesome. And so we want to figure that into the price as we think about buying this house. And then you just got to consider, is it worth it? Because you don't have any control over the house next door unless you can buy that one as well. So I don't want to have a house that sits vacant for a long time. And we all know that if a house has a vacant house right next to it, residents are less likely to move in because they don't want to be next to a vacant house where anybody could just walk in and live there. The best advice I can give you is to come to the city and walk the street. All right, I'm here with Craig Bingston, and he is going to walk through this house. We're going to point out anything that's wrong with it so we can calculate how much repair this property needs. Craig, you ready?
I am, thanks.
Let's do it. All right, so that's it. Craig and I have walked the house. We've done a thorough inspection of the house, and so now we just want to talk about it because ultimately at the end of the day, we want to decide, is this a house we want to buy, we want to make an offer on? Craig, we were talking yesterday and you said something interesting. You said, really anything can be a deal at the right price. And this is something you should probably understand, if you don't already, that you're going to make your money on the buy. And so Craig, let's just talk real briefly. Let's talk about some of the first things that you noticed as you walked in. Just kind of list them off.
Windows need to be replaced, roof needs to be replaced, there needs to be a lot of repairs on the roof. Air conditioner is going to need to be replaced as it's prior to 2010, which would be an R410 system, not repairable. The house was soft as you walked through it, so I imagine there's going to be some supports in the crawl space. Probably some corrections down in the crawl space too due to moisture and water. Electrical system does have a newer panel, but I'm sure that newer panel is hooked up to a 2-wire system, which is not adequate and would not pass a Section 8 inspection.
Well, that brings a good point. So if we were looking at this property for Section 8 rental, which a lot of houses in this area are Section 8 houses,
yep,
there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done.
There is, and you know, it's a 4-bedroom, which is a positive. It's got 2 baths, so you're going to get the higher end of the Section 8 rental, which I imagine would probably be maybe $1,050, $1,100. So you really, to make your 1% rule, you're going to have to be all in at $110,000, which is going to be very hard to do with that house, with the amount of work that's involved.
With the amount of work that's involved, also something to think about is this house was built in 1935. So the house is almost 100 years old. And what this means is you're going to have more repairs as somebody lives in this house, especially when we're thinking about Section 8. A Section 8 resident typically spends more time in the house, and so they're flushing more commodes, they're flipping more light switches, there's more wear and tear on the house. You have that inspection every year from Section 8, and they're going to point out different things that need to be done. And so it's not just a matter of getting this house up to Section 8 code, but it's long-term, what are we looking at with repairs and maintenance? So those are some things that you mentioned, that all these windows have been painted shut, so there's going to be extensive work to fix those windows. We saw some rot in some of the windows. We know that paint and carpet is involved, but you've just mentioned some big ticket items.
Right.
Wiring, the roof, which you said has about 3 or 4 layers on it.
Correct.
And then the HVAC. This is an older HVAC system, and so it can't be really repaired.
No.
It's when it gets upgraded, or when it gets fixed, or when it dies, it's going to have to be replaced, which we're talking about $7,000.
Correct.
And so if we're looking at the numbers just objectively, then this is going to be a $50,000 renovation or so, something like that. But what I think is probably more important, so the way we like to look at it is a funnel. You start at the top, which in the video I mentioned, starting from the neighborhood, the class of neighborhood that we're in, which this class of neighborhood is a C to D neighborhood. There are fantastic parts of this area called Inslee in Birmingham. There's fantastic parts. I bought houses, you bought houses in Inslee, owned great homes, had great residents. But then there's also very shady parts of this area. And for whatever reason, this property, when we turned on the road, it started out pretty decent. There were some homes that had, people were taking care of them. There was pride of ownership, but then we started seeing vacant lots and then condemned houses.
Correct. And it went from the first 3 or 4 houses being nice to the rest of the 6 to 8 houses on that block being in disrepair, and in major disrepair, including a fire, condemnation, vacant lots, and overgrown property. So it is, even if you fixed up that lot and that house, you're going to have on either side and across the street, you're going to have houses that will not match the house that you've done.
Yeah, if you have, let's say, $100,000 in this house, next door is a condemned house, next door is a vacant lot, across the street is a house that had a fire, there's a dumpster outside, and this could have happened within the past 2 or 3 months. And this is why it's important to have some boots on the ground. If you're not in the city, you need to have boots on the ground. And this is my advice. If you have a wholesaler trying to sell you a house, or a turnkey person trying to sell you a house, I would get them to take a video of the street just so that you can see every house around in either direction, in all directions, across the street and on both sides of the house. Because what happens is, if you have a beautiful house and it's surrounded by condemned houses, vacant lots, burnouts, then a great resident is not going to want to move in there, because they know what happens to vacant and abandoned houses, condemned houses. They get lived in, and it's not good for anybody.
And most Section 8 tenants are going to have children, and the children are going to be curious, and they're going to go next door and they're going to play in the condemned house. It's not going to be safe for them.
On paper, in a spreadsheet, it may make sense, but when you actually look at the area, it doesn't make sense. And so we're asking the question, should you buy this rental? If you were asking me to look at this rental for you, I would tell you, do not buy it. We can cross this one off our list. So Craig, thanks for going out to this house with me. We'll do this again. We'll go look at some other houses and come back and report, should you buy these houses as well.